Do you know what we love on the Sixth Man? We love when we finally have two people who have both their teams and we can talk about the series. Hallelujah. Not atting you, Wildy. I am atting you. Yeah, I am. We're here with
That's very Doc Rivers of you, Alex. No, I'm not atting you. I am atting you. You're very Doc Rivers there.
Yeah, I'm just trying to play the role. I'm just trying to play the role. You know, I've obviously been watching too much. But anyway, to move away from Philly and we move on to the West, the Jazz are eliminated, Bray's Jazz, by Lancashire Laimbeer's Clippers, who move on to the Western Conference Finals for the first time ever. They did choke in a Game 6, which is cool. The Game 6 win for the Clippers, a massive comeback. And Terrence Mann really showed up, 39 points. Let's talk to Matt first from a Clippers point of view. How are you feeling?
Well, I'll have to say that I got it wrong. I said that the Clippers would win in 7, and you all laughed at me. Well, you all laughed at me because you obviously knew that the Clippers were going to win in 6. So, how wrong of me to do that? But I'm delighted with the Clippers. They've obviously done it without Kawhi in the final stretch, which is even more impressive, especially considering how much he carried them through that series against the Mavs. And even in those first few games against the Jazz, he kept them in touch. But yeah, Terrence Mann really stepped up. Paul George has also extremely stepped up. Even in that first game loss against the Suns just the other night, he was going toe-to-toe with Devin Booker for quite a lot of that game. So I'm really pleased with how much Paul George has stepped up. And yeah, just the Clippers are looking a force. Like, it's obviously going to be difficult now to go and beat the Suns. Especially without Kawhi Leonard, but I'm pleased with my prediction. I'm the only person to have drafted in the top 4 and have one of those first picks come through to the conference finals. So
that's good insight there. Bray, let's move on. Let's move on to the Jazz. Obviously, we've spoken with Carl Evans, who continues to rage on my and Ed's chat, but refuses to come on because he hasn't got the balls. Which is shocking of you, Carl. Really shocking. Just turn up, man. I've done it for Philly. Just come on. Just come and talk about it. Anyway.
Definitely an all-talk person. All talk. All bark, no bite.
Flamini. Just Flamini on the pitch, just rabbiting away. But anyway, the Jazz, they lose Game 6. They were up big. What's next for the Jazz, and what did you see in that Game 6?
I think the biggest thing I saw is, and this is one thing I wouldn't have kind of guessed, is that Quinn Snyder got out-coached.
The Bond villain.
Ty Lue came in and said, we're gonna make your newly signed Defensive Player of the Year unplayable.
No, we're not talking about Philly. We're not talking about Philly. We're talking about Utah. Sorry, we're not talking about Philly.
Honestly, the way they were able to mount that comeback stemmed literally from them putting Gobert in an impossible situation. And a lot of people will blame Gobert for that, but honestly, there is no one at his size. Like, he did the best job of anyone at his size. Any center at 7 feet, I think, can do, because he was being asked to help in the paint and close out a capable 3-point shooter, and it's not something you can ask him to do. And I don't think, in Gobert's mind, I don't think he's just going to sit in a corner and stay home on a shooter, because the Jazz's defense revolves around him and funneling people towards him. So they were going to get torched either way. And it was an unfortunate situation that they were shooting so well. Not many teams will shoot well enough to play Gobert off the court. And I think that's probably what Quinn Snyder was gambling on, in that it is so hard to be so streaky and to make all these shots. The Clippers are one of the very few teams that can do it, and showed that you can basically play this guy off the floor. And he looked terrible. He hemorrhaged points and was basically the reason they lost, because they couldn't defend. And on offense, you can't throw it to him in the post. Yeah. You can't. Like, with a lot of these centers, like Ayton is the perfect example. Like, Ayton will punish you. He gets like around 4 to 5 post touches a game, whereas Gobert just can't, because he can't do anything with it. So it's not great for the Jazz, to be honest.
12 of 16 field goal shooting when defended by Rudy Gobert, and also at the end of the game, Reggie Jackson was attacking him and scoring and driving on him, which is something I was really shocked by. Yeah.
under normal circumstances, you don't do that. Even if you're an elite defender, I think it's probably just the fact that they've been abusing him all of this time gives him a bit of confidence. Obviously, Reggie Jackson's an irrational confidence guy anyway, but most, like, even if you're an elite driver like Kawhi, LeBron, you think twice before going up against Gobert. He is that good defensively, but the situation was that he was getting absolutely rinsed.
I think I was reading somewhere that said Reggie Jackson's got like the best plus minus, or got the best points per possession on ISO plays or something like that, in like a specific circumstance. So he was really, in terms of ISO board, he was really killing Gobert and the Jazz, specifically on that. And it goes part of it actually goes to your point in terms of funding it to Gobert, because the reason they're funding is because the rest of the Utah Jazz team, something you mentioned before, Bray, aren't that good at defending. And if they're all spread out across the 3-point line, even if they try to play a zone with Gobert in the center, someone is going to be free on the perimeter, because 4 players can't guard 5 players on the perimeter. So with enough ball movement, they'll find an open shooter. So Gobert has to come out one way or another. They went super small. I think Morris was playing at the center, and even Morris and when your center can shoot from threes as well, it's very tricky. He has to come out.
I think it's a pick your poison when Gobert's out there, because you're either giving up the paint or you're giving up threes. And for the most part, like there are, let's just put it out there are very few teams in this league who can outshoot a defense like that. It doesn't happen very often. But obviously it's an elimination game, and they come up clutch when they need to. I would also like to apologise to Terrence Mann. I just said I didn't put any respect on his name. I said he was fine. Not that I disliked him or anything, or think he's overrated, but he turned up. Big man.
Watching that game, how is anyone going to stop this guy? Like, there was like a 5 or 6 minutes when he's literally getting like all the buckets. Like, is anyone going to do something about this? Like, what's going on here? One more point on what you were saying about Gobert is, I think we were both listening to Zach Lowe's podcast because they were talking about Philly and all the trade stuff, which I found super interesting. But at the end, they were talking about the Jazz series, and they mentioned how exactly what you said in terms of the offensive end. Gobert can't do anything with a mismatch. I think he had like someone was on a mismatch against him, and they're not going to throw it down to him because you can't really get a bucket like that. It's not like Vooch, where of course he can be a killer on the defensive end, but at least on offense, you have to respect his game one way or another. If you put a small out on him, he will punish him. And that's also another point where it's like, yeah, he's not going to be an offensive threat. So it's just a minus both ways of the floor. And I mentioned this before when we spoke about Jazz Clippers, because obviously had both teams in regular season. There was a point where 50% of the Jazz shots came from 3-point range. And the only team, it was mainly between the Clippers and the Jazz all season, who was better at 3-point shooting. And if there was one team to outshoot the Jazz with a better percentage, it would be the Clippers. So maybe it could have been just a matchup issue where the one team that can outscore them and have the wings.
It's a matchup issue. They're so weak at defending wings. They haven't got the wing defenders, and the Clippers have arguably 2 of the 5 best wings in the league. You could. There's an argument to say there. It's a horrible matchup for them, but that's the playoffs. You have to play certain teams, and unfortunately, it's the one they got. But yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of covered everything there on the Jazz's collapse. I'm so interested to see what's going to happen next with them, though.
And the biggest weakness, as you were saying in terms of matchups, the biggest weakness for the Clippers was their inability to defend guards. And Mike Conley was injured and Donovan Mitchell wasn't 100%. So from Utah, you're just kicking yourself that it was just, we could have had it, but we couldn't utilize that weakness.
Another golden opportunity missed for a team that was a high seed. There you go.
Very high.
You're not going to get another chance like this. LeBron isn't going to be out of the first round next year. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
Dwayne Wade now. They've got Dwayne Wade. Who knows?